Jones, and I have a really great movie that I want to review for you today. I recently watched what is without a doubt the finest movie that I have ever seen. And honestly, I was quite surprised, and you might ask why. Well, it's a one-man show, performed live on stage and filmed for release in several different media. The production starred Mr. Dean Jones, yes, that guy from all those Disney movies. And until viewing this, I did not consider Jones a serious actor at all. I considered him more of just a comedic actor, with little depth, actually. In 96 minutes, however, which is how long the show runs, Mr. Jones takes you through a wide range of emotions in this beautifully done production of St. John in Exile. You will walk away really feeling like you know St. John. I was, however, surprised for another reason, and that being the director is Mr. Dan Curtis, who has had a truly remarkable track record as a producer and director over the years, beginning in 1966 with Dark Shadows. Consider this sampling of just a few of the projects that Dan Curtis was associated with. There is the World War II epic miniseries, Winds of War and War and Remembrance. He did adaptations of classics such as Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dracula. There was also The Night Stalker, which at the time it was released and for many years after, was the highest rated television movie ever released. And it was quite spectacular. And we cannot forget about, which I mentioned just briefly a moment ago, Dark Shadows, which aired on ABC TV from 1966 through 1971. And I would not have associated him with a Christian project like this just because most of his work, not all of it, but most of it had to do with the occult, the paranormal, the supernatural. Although towards the end of his career and life, he did other types of movies also. Now, I first learned of this remarkable movie at a church giveaway that I went to not long ago, where I picked up this VHS copy of the movie. And when I saw Dan Curtis listed as the director, I had to watch it. I had to watch it because I am a big fan of Dan Curtis's. And I am, being that I have no VHS deck, though, I wasn't sure what to do at first, but then the little hamster jumped on the wheels, and I checked out YouTube and Amazon, where it is available to watch free on both of those services. And it doesn't cost anything, zero. So this is a must-see, truly, for most Christians. You have to see it. St. John in Exile is set at a time when thousands of Christians were being persecuted under the reign of Domitianus. And we are drawn in as Dean Jones talks directly to the audience. We find John in the process of dictating the revelation when several Christians, we, the audience, are given permission to visit him. And John at this point in time is 86 years old and has been confined to a cave in which he lives. And despite his age, John is full of life, articulate, and full of humor and love and depth. We also see that during the course of his exile, John took joy and pleasure in trying to evangelize his guards. What he would do in this play is he would leave the handwritten copies of the Gospels just laying around, knowing that they were going to be confiscated and hopefully read by the guards. And I'm sure that John offered up many prayers on behalf of his captors. There are so many stories John shares revealing the close and intimate friendship between the disciples and our Lord Jesus Christ. He even had pets in his cave rats to be exact. I guess they could be a comfort if you had nothing else or no one else with you. And he hilariously named two of them, Ananias and Sapphira, as well as Pontius Pilate and Herod. There was one scene in particular that I loved, a humor scene. John comes out on stage with a small bowl from which he's eating locusts and honey, which he explains that he had become fond of after John the Baptist had recommended them to him. Then he offers some to the guests, and he is trying to pick some of the little legs from between his teeth as he's offering them to to us in the audience. But my heart was moved and tears brought to my eyes as he shares the crucifixion, and then as the joy of Jesus' resurrection comes about. Dean Jones, as John, tells us with vivid and stark reality of the disciples walking through the streets of Kidron just prior to Jesus' crucifixion, and how those streets were filled with blood from the sacrifices of the Passover lambs. He describes the sorrow and deep sadness as Jesus is taken from them, and the fear they were possessed of at the possibility of their imminent capture for being associated with our Lord. Now, St. John in Exile was first presented. I think his own life is an inspiring story. I'm going to begin with, still the studio signed Jones, and in his first credited role, he found himself acting opposite of James Cagney in the 1956 drama, These Wilder Years. The veteran actor helped him through the scenes. There I was, just out of the U.S. Navy, without an acting lesson to my name, Jones told Christianity Today. In walks Cagney and says, "Walk to your mark and remember your lines. That's all I've been doing for 30 years. Jones had mostly small roles of far grittier nature than his later Disney fare. He said, "I played drug addicts, pimps, and hard-cased killers, ex-cons, and angry young men." He told the Times in 1995, and he revealed in the movie life. In 2007, he was interviewed by the Pantograph newspaper in Bloomington. And beginning in 1965, with That Darn Cat, Jones became closely identified with Disney family fare. He kind of found his niche there. In addition to The Love Bug and The Ugly Dachshund, he was the leading man in Monkeys Go Home, The Horse in the Gray Flannel Suit, The $1 Million Duck, The Shaggy DA, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, and other Disney feature films. And that's why I thought, that's why I didn't give his acting abilities much depth, because he played comedic characters. Not that doesn't take talent, it does, but the depth that he shows in St. John in Exile exceeds anything that I would have been able to attribute to him. But continuing, but in the late 1960s and early 1970s, he was leading an off-screen life contrary to the wholesome image. He had numerous affairs and was drinking heavily. He said, "I had thought if I became a star, I'd be happy," he said in a 1976 LA Times interview. "I had thought if I had a fairly large amount of money, I'd be happy. I thought if I had a house on a hill, that I would be happy." But Jones found that such was not the case, that those things did not bring happiness. He continued, "I thought if I had a Ferrari, I'd be happy. One goal after another was accomplished, and with no fulfillment at all." Jones was able to keep his torment largely separated from his work life. Even the head of the studio was fooled, and I remember having lunch with Walt one day, he said, and he told me, "Dean, you are the perfect fit for these types of pictures. You're such a good family man." And Jones told the Pantograph, "I wasn't a good family man." Jones acknowledged, "I was showing up at home, smelling a perfume that wasn't my wife's." Jones' first marriage to May, Inez Entwise, ended in divorce in 1970. They had 2 daughters. But here is the thing. That's really moving about him. With his depression growing and his other marriage coming apart, Jones left his role as Bobby in Stephen Sondheim's 1970 musical smash Broadway hit Company. Returning to Los Angeles, he told interviewers that he had been ill and he went back to making Disney feature films. But he remained on the same disturbing path until 1973. While in touring production of the musical 1776, he underwent a personal conversion. He continued to work in films and television, though not as much, and he was sometimes critical of Hollywood. Films and television, he said, have been partially responsible for the disconnect between our nation and our God, and that is true. He told Christianity Today that was what was responsible. Jones did appear in the Tim Clancy thriller Clear and Present Danger, and in the drama comedy Other People's Money, And Jones took on several religion-based theme or projects, including his touring one-man show, St. John, the Exile. His life was completely changed by his conversion to Christianity, by his finding Jesus Christ, and this particular movie shows that dramatic change. If you have a chance, and it is here on YouTube, and I will try to remember to put a link in the description so you can see the movie, take the opportunity. Your heart will be blessed if you're a Christian, and if you're not a Christian, I believe your heart will be opened to the truth of Jesus Christ and his love for each and every single one of us. That's all I got. I can't recommend this movie highly enough. Dean Jones, Dan Curtis, dynamic duo in St. John, the Exile. God bless you all. Love you much. And I'll talk to you real soon.